We play and call it work.
Hey folks, Janene from MiniWarGaming here with another how-to video for you. In this video, we are going to do one of the final steps on the Slaughterpriest model, and we are going to paint some black leather accents on some of the straps that are hanging down from his belt, as well as the ones that wrap around his boots. As always, if you have suggestions for something you'd like to see in a future how-to video, please leave them down below in the comments. Like I said, I want this to be a really dark black leather, so we are going to start with the color Abaddon Black. We're going to mix it with some Lamian Medium, and we are going to paint this all over all of the leather straps just to give us a really nice, dark, solid starting coat, so that when all of the colors go on top as we highlight, they're going to apply evenly. So the biggest section of leather is going to be this area right in front of the belt where all of these straps are hanging down. But there's a few other areas as well. There's a strap that actually connects the shoulder pad to the chest itself. It's hooked into the flesh. And then there's straps that encircle the boots and the big thick belt that wraps around the waist in the back as well. After applying the black, we are going to alternate between doing some brown leathery colors and some gray black colors. Our next color is going to be the color Dryad Bark. I'm applying this because it's a really dark brown, so it's not going to show up too much on top of this black. It's not going to overpower it, and I'm going to be able to highlight on top of the Dryad Bark in such a way that the leather still seems like it's going to be black and not brown. But it is a brown, so it's going to also be a good base for some of the more natural leather colors that I want to add later, so that it still looks like leather even though it's black. So I'm just applying this as a really heavy line highlight, outlining all of the leather straps, and I want to make sure that I pay attention to the areas where the straps have been sculpted to have a crack in the leather, because those areas are going to be a little bit lighter than the rest of the leather. And in a few cases, if I feel like the leather is too plain and there's not enough detail, I'm going to go ahead and paint some lines through the leather belts to make it seem as if there is a crack, even though it's not sculpted onto the plastic. There's an area that has a little bit more wear right there. After the Dryad Bark, our next color is going to be Dark Reaper. Again, this is mixed with Lamian Medium, so was our Dryad Bark, and so are all of our colors. We want to make sure that they flow onto the model and they have a really thin, smooth consistency so that they don't gloop anywhere, and we can just apply really controlled thin layers. This Dark Reaper is going to be on top of the Dryad Bark. I want to paint slightly less of the model, so some of the Dryad Bark is peeking through. But basically, I'm just applying this on top. Almost all of my colors are going to just be on the edges and the areas that I want to accent as cracks. After the Dark Reaper, our next color is going to be Thunderhawk Blue. This is another gray color. You can see that I'm picking grays that are progressively lighter, but also have just a tint of blue in them, a little bit more of cool grays than neutral grays. And I'm just doing that so that it has a little bit of a different color than the cloth that I painted gray underneath, which was more of a true neutral gray, and also to give it a little bit of contrast from the really warm armor. This is going to be highlighting the areas that I painted with Dark Reaper. Again, it's going on the edges, but I'm not necessarily applying this as a full edge highlight as I did with my previous colors. I'm applying this mainly in the areas that would be hit by more light and the areas where I want the crack to be the most exaggerated. So I'm particularly going to be picking out the sculpted areas that have tears and cracks in the leather, and anywhere where the fold of the leather kind of rises up a little bit. I want that rise to catch the light a little bit and make it seem like it's moving, so I'm going to highlight there. And I'm kind of just eyeballing it and making sure that I highlight areas that I feel like need a little bit more detail. If there's anywhere on the leather that looks boring, adding some of this highlight can really help jazz it up a little bit. Our next color is going to be Russ Gray. This is a pretty bright gray, so I need to be careful with this color or I'm going to brighten the leather too much and it's not going to look like cracked black leather, it's going to look very gray. So I'm really going to be sparing and just pick out the highest highlights and the most interesting details with this color. This is the last of my blue-gray highlights, and then I'm going to go back to my natural colors. My next color is going to be Tau Light Ochre. Now with this color, I'm going to pick out a couple areas where I feel like there are the biggest cracks. And I'm not going to paint this everywhere. I'm just going to pick out those areas and I'm going to paint a little section of this more orangey natural look to make it seem like the leather has worn to such a point that the dye is completely gone and the actual fleshy colors are showing through the cracks. I need to be careful because if I do too much of this, I'm going to lose all of my black details, all of my black highlights. So just adding a little bit is going to sell that look of this being an actual leather, but going overboard is going to be too much. So I've kind of got to play a delicate balancing game, just picking out the larger cracks to apply this technique to. After the Tau Light Ochre, I'm going to do a very light highlight with the color Kislev Flesh. I don't need to use a lot of this color. In fact, I don't want to use too much because once again, I don't want to lighten or overpower the black. I'm just adding a hint of color in there to kind of give the fleshy areas a little bit more dimension and make them a little bit more interesting so they're not flat. Alright, and with that last highlight of Kislev Flesh, the black leather on the Slaughterpriest is complete. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more how-to videos, I have another one where I'm going to paint the Tyrannid's skull underneath his boot in the MiniWarGaming Vault in the link down below in the description. If you don't already have a Vault membership, you can go ahead and click the link, sign up for a 7-day free trial, and get access to my video as well as hundreds of other videos in the MiniWarGaming Vault. So go ahead, click the link, start your free trial, and happy wargaming!